So let me talk about what this actual file contains here. So if you scroll up closer to the top, you're going to, and actually, why don't you do Control MO? I'm assuming you have a standard. Can we try that again? MO. That didn't come through as a single chord. Let's try that one more time. Two characters together are called a chord. So Control M, Control O without picking up the control. Is that going to work this time?
It is not.
It's picking up the O. For some reason, it's not getting that chord correct. All right, so if you right-click, we'll just do this.
Sure.
So right-click and go to Outlining, and then it should have a collapse to definition. And it should have been Control MO, but there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so scroll up to the top, and you'll see that we have several different classes here. We have a person class, and inheriting from person, we have student and staff.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then students have GPAs. Staff doesn't have GPAs, but they have a role and they have a salary.
Yep.
If you scroll down a little further, you'll see that there's a special kind of instructor, which is a special type of staff, which is an instructor. Okay, so that's the layout. Now,
gotcha.
I want to point out I've used decimal here because I'm kind of on this kick this year. Every time I speak, I'm going to remind people to use decimal instead of floating points. Every time, unless you know for a fact you need the performance of a floating point. We are past the point where a floating point matters anymore. We are just way past that. So, so these are decimals. Okay, so how do you like the fact I put all these classes in one file, Jim? Do you like that?
I do not.
You hate that?
Well, hate's a strong word, Kathleen.
All right.
But I do hate it.
Okay, so why don't you go up to the top there and position your cursor on line 14, someplace in that declaration, and hit Control period. And now that says move to student.cs. If you just hit Enter.
And it gives you that little preview, too, of what it's going to affect.
It does give you a
That's
preview.
really,
Hit
that's
Enter.
Really sweet.
Do the same thing to staff. Just Control period Enter. Control period Enter.
I think I see where this is going.
And then Control period Enter one more time on the enum. Okay, now open up the domain in your Solution Explorer so you can see that it's separated those out into a whole bunch of different files. Is that cool?
That's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Okay.
In fact, there's several extensions that do that, but to see it actually built in
and working so smoothly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I'd like you to do something else here. We can just do it to this one. Can you just change the name on line 3? Change person to just change it to foo for right now. Okay. You say Control Z, and then if you actually let's do it a little bit differently. Position there again and hit Control RR. And now just type. Now this is we've got kind of a funny resolution here, so that rename person is really big. Just ignore the box and type foo. Okay, and hit Enter. Okay, so now we have a different name for the for our class. Now it says, but if you look over in the Solution Explorer, you'll see it still says person.
Right.
Now, a lot of people have a very clear, they always change the file name first, so they don't get into the situation where they don't match. And that's totally silly. Why would we have to worry about that, right?
Right.
So why don't you hit Control period right now, and it says rename file to foo.cs or rename this to person. So now it's foo.cs.
And change the file name to foo.cs. So, so we changed the code, right? So we renamed person to foo, which changed the reference to person everywhere in the code base, right?
Right, but it didn't.
But it didn't bother to change the file name because it wasn't sure that's what we wanted to do. But now we have an option to do that as well.
Right,
Fantastic.
right. So now, if you hit Control Z a couple of times, is it gonna? I guess because the rename, it's not going backwards on this one. Okay. So let's go ahead and now, if you do that, you're going to have to change it everywhere.
I'm learning.
Okay. So go ahead and do put foo back in there. Because you're that way, and then just hit Enter, make sure everybody's caught up. Now hit Control RR, type person, hit Enter, and you're done. Okay?
Fantastic.
Except that the file name doesn't match again, so can you fix that?
I can.
All right, now we're back to where we want to be. Is that cool?
It is. This is fantastic.
This whole managing of files just becomes smooth and easy. And I know a lot of people do use ReSharper, and ReSharper has some great rename features, so this is a little less exciting to some people there. But I still think that it's so sweet. Just it colorizes every place that you can see what it's going to change, and then it just changes. You just type and hit Enter. So it's great.
Absolutely. Like the preview feature is something that's brand new to me. Like when it shows you the scope of what it's about to change, like this is the class that you're about to move out into a new file.
Right.
And that's hot. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love just the fact that they've taken a lot of the standard conventions that developers use and they've just made it really accessible.
Yeah,
So
that was
really nice.
that's the idea, is that this is going to be, this is the first version of Visual Studio that is fully built after Anders flipped the switch like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and said the whole dev is on Visual Studio and C# and Visual Basic, and except for the people doing C++, to do C++ in Visual Studio, know, which is an important group, as is F#. So since then, we had Visual Studio 2015 came out, but it was already being baked, and we're still in the middle of the Roslyn cycle. Now we're post-Roslyn. This has fully been developed in a post-Roslyn world. Yep. And when somebody at Microsoft sits down and says, we can make this feature easier to use, they're making it easier for the guy down the hall and themselves, and we're right in the middle of that right now, which is why this stuff is just really super cool.
Yeah.